Hello friends, I'm Michael Kingswood. I write fiction for fun and profit. Before we get to today's show, we have to do one thing real quick, and that's a little spot from our sponsor. Fortunately enough, our sponsor is me. In a world of valor and magic, two soldiers flee from their past. An isolated mountain town suffers under the heel of a vicious band of brigands. An offer of redemption for the one, salvation for the other, but not without great risk to both. Action and adventure await in Glimmer Vale, the first book of the Glimmer Vale Chronicles. Get your copy today, wherever great books are sold. Alright friends, I have released the glorious Thor locks, which means we're doing more music tonight. And, I was going to move on. I've been going back and forth in my head about what to do next, because there's so many bands that I've like, and numerous kind of people have turned me on to things I should check out in the comments of various recordings that I've done up to now. But since I've been listening almost non-stop to this for the last almost 2 weeks now, and I've done a few, I feel like, and I did the reaction to my favorite Heraith from this album. I feel like I should continue some more with it. And I've said Heraith is my favorite, but right up there, right next to it, is The Weave. And I'm going to talk on the back end why I am so taken with this song, above and beyond the musicality of it. I mean, you can't critique the musicality of anything that Nightwish puts out, with a few small exceptions. But this one in particular, I liked it, and then I looked into it more, and it was like, holy cow, this is amazing. So, in lieu of delaying, I'm gonna talk about this one because I think it's awesome. It's difficult to say which one I like more, Heraith or this one. I think I'm still putting Heraith above it just because of the overall beauty and how much that grabs me for its beauty and dynamics. But yet this one is also very dynamic and obviously beautiful. But this one also has another aspect to it, and its lyrical and overall lyrical structure and musical structure that it's like, man, this is epic. So we're going to play it, and then we'll talk about it on the back end. I'll talk about my thoughts afterwards. Let's get over to The Weave. Boom!
Sandwich of the unheard.
reminiscent of Scare Tale. Okay, so let's talk about that. Since I was a dummy and didn't turn off my muting, because I suck, that's okay. We're going to grow with it. So, interesting thing about this album, when I was first listening to it, I have this thing where I put on music when I'm going to bed and other things, and just listening to it in the background, whether I'm driving or whatever. And for a while there was a couple of songs on this album that annoyed me, because it was like during the verse it was like she's singing and then drawing out, and then singing and then drawing out, and then singing and then drawing out, and I was like, God, this rhythm is boring. It's like I felt like they were trying to be profound through the structure, but not with anything else. And I was like, oh gosh, just stop, just sing normal. And then I listened to it more deeply when I wasn't distracted by other things. And I was like, and yeah, they did the verse structure where it's like ba 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 dun, ba ba da da dun, ba ba da da dun, in a couple of the songs. And when I first listened to it, I was like, man, I hate those songs the most because it's so repetitive and oh god, it's predictable. And it felt boring, but which is what I just said. But and this was one of them at first. Then I listened to it more deeply, and I was like, wait a minute. No, it ain't boring at all. It's actually awesome. And even in my somewhat jackastic initial thought process of it, this one stood out as more interesting because the dynamics, it goes from the soft, beautiful to the hard, then back to the soft, then back to the hard. And it was like, man, that's cool. Then I looked at the lyrics, and that's when I got blown away because Tuomas, in his interview leading up to this album, he said you should sit down, listen to it with your lyric book open, read the lyrics as you listen to the songs, and that's the proper way to do it. And of course I didn't do that. Of course not. Why would I do what the composer said to do? Because why? Anyway, when I did that, suddenly this song became epic because if you look at the lyrics, it repeats back on itself, right? They go through the lyrics from light to unweaving back to light. It's a circle. It's a repetition. And that's when I realized that's when the wheels started turning and the wood got knocked on. I was like, holy cow. Yeah, when I first saw the title of this and listened to it the first time, I was brought back to Robert Jordan's The Wheel of Time series. I don't know if you guys have read that. If you haven't, you should. The conceit behind that series of fantasy novels is that the world that Jordan created, time flows in a wheel. What is has been and will come back to being again, and there's a pattern to the universe that's woven by the wheel of time, weaving the strands of people's lives to create the pattern, which the creator had in mind. The creator in his books only actually speaks once. One conversation with the creator is basically like, hey, I created this, but I'm not going to get involved. It's at the end of the very first book. Basically, it's like, hey, I can't get involved. It's up to you to do what you need to do to the main protagonist. And excuse me, so I was thinking about that when I first listened to this, and then afterwards, and then I went back in my head and was like, oh yeah, Tuomas he has written obviously many things from literary sources. I mean, it would take all day to list the things he's referenced, but right offhand, a couple things that come straight to mind was Seven Days to the Wolves is obviously Stephen King from The Dark Tower, and the Edema that's Patrick Rothfuss. I mean, that's the main character in Patrick Rothfuss is from that people group. So I was like thinking, man, was Tuomas referencing the Wheel of Time here? That'd be cool. But then when I sat down with the lyrics and saw the cyclical nature of it, that reinforced it a little bit. But then I was like, no, because keep in mind the themes and what they've been doing the last couple albums is like, it's more scientific, more physics-based, more biological-based, and then I was like, oh, maybe I get it now. Because if you look at the lyrics, obviously, maybe to me, it's obvious that there's a self-insert, he of myriad songs. Thomas has put himself into his music many times before. So probably he's in there now. But if you look at how the lyrics progress, it goes from light to unweaving and then back again. But also it's like souls being born and then, proceeding through the newborn to the older to the coming past to the unweaving and then back again. It's like, okay, but then it reverses, right? It's the unweaving going back to the newborn, back to light. And I was like, oh, okay, I think I get it. So I'm an engineer. I studied mechanical engineering, minored in astronomy, and I've read up on physics for years just because I find that stuff fascinating. Um, there's a couple different, I won't call them theories because they're not really proven, but there's a couple different concepts in cosmology. Roger Penrose had this cool idea in the last couple of years. I don't remember what he calls it, but it's this recurring thing where the universe creates, it goes out to its heat death, and then I saw an interview with him where he's like, and then it gets boring, which I was like, oh, it's boring to God, is what I was thinking, because I'm a Christian and I believe in God, and I'm a Christian. But then he was like, nah, not boring from a personal sense, but from a physical sense. And then his concept was then something happens to rekindle and it all springs forth again. So an eternal spring forth expansion and then expansion and an expansion thing. And he has mathematical reasons why he thinks this is right. And Penrose is a really smart dude. He's got a lot of good work. And I found that intriguing. But what I think this song might be more about, there was a concept in cosmology that was present for a while, because we knew about from the physical evidence of it with the cosmic microwave background and all that stuff, that we knew the Big Bang event happened and the universe expanded. And for a while, people were thinking it was going to expand for a while, and then something would come back and cause it to contract back on itself, and then re-expand, and then re-contract. An eternal expansion and contraction thing. Subsequently, there were observations that showed that the expansion of the universe is in fact accelerating, or at least appears to be. And so that kind of put that idea kind of to the side. But then, more recently, observational astronomy has shown that there are some disconnects between the expansion model and what they're seeing, and they're like, oh, geez, we have to rethink things. So I wonder if Thomas wasn't talking about the expansion contraction thing, because one of the posited consequences of the eternal expansion and contraction concept is that when the universe comes back on itself, time would go in reverse. In fact, there have been some physicists who posit that all the antimatter particles and things that we see, that antimatter is just real matter going backwards through time. If that were the case, then this sort of structure that Thomas did in this song would be, and we'd all be born, we'd live, we'd do our things, we'd die, more generations would live and die, and it would all start to unravel, unweave, if you will, and then it would all collapse together, and suddenly the people who were dying would be going and coming back, and then and then breathing their first, and then the initial light of the Big Bang, or put it in my Christian terms, the initial light of God's creation. It's all the same thing. So you go from light of creation to unweaving of the heat death, collapse back to light of creation, boom, 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 forever and ever, amen. Now, I don't personally hold to that from a theological and philosophical level, because of a number of different reasons. Primarily because you end up with a causality issue. Both with that and Penrose's concept is poses less of the causality problem, sort of, but they all end up with an infinite regress, right? Boom, 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 or boom, boom, boom. Whether it's expand and contract, or expand, then re-expand, then re-expand. Either way, you have a causality problem because you can't knock down an initial causal effect, right? And this goes back to the there are multiple proofs for the existence of God, cosmological proof, among other things. But that's the primary one, because, right, if you're always doing this eternal cycle, at some point, the eternal cycle had to be kicked off, right? What caused that? Well, the answer theologically would be God, but flip it around, right? What if there was an initial cause? Every expansion, recontraction, or expansion, reattraction just resets itself. Maybe the concept then becomes, well, there doesn't have to be a cause because it just keeps redoing it, but then there's no cause for redoing, and well, there has to be a cause for everything, but there is no cause, and it becomes a paradox, right? A paradox on multiple levels, which is well beyond the scope of this discussion. And maybe this has nothing to do with what Thomas was intending in his composition. That's what I'm getting out of it, is a discussion of these cosmological possibilities. And I find that fascinating. I find that awesome, frankly. And add to it the stunning musical construction, obviously the lyrical singing, the lyrics themselves, if you look at them, it's like the way, even if you don't take into the cyclical back and forth of the lyrics, there's still a lot to chew on there. And then, of course, the instrumentality. I mean, everything about this song is awesome. I love it. And that's why it is tied with Wraith for my favorite on this album. It'd be hard to say which one is best for me. But there it is. So I love this. I love this whole album. There's a couple songs that don't do it for me so much. But even the ones that don't do it for me so much are still pretty great. So I'm going to keep going through this over the next couple weeks. I'm going to start going through the songs that other people have recommended to me because, well, it would be rude not to, and also I'm intrigued. But yeah, this song's great. I hope you liked it, and I hope maybe you got something out of my pontification. Maybe you didn't. Let me know in the comments. Subscribe if you dig this. And then, you know what? Like I've said before, I am a writer. I write lots of books. And we're getting started on volume 3 of my collection from last year of stories that I wrote. Last year I made a goal of writing a story every week, and I more than crushed it. And I released those stories in volumes of 10, with the final one being volume of 12, because, 52 weeks in the year. And we've been reading through them on the channel. We are starting volume 3 this Saturday at Story Saturday. So if you like music, stick around here. If you like science fiction, fantasy, mystery stories, and just cool stories, stick around here too. Come by on Story Saturday. And I'm using this channel as an excuse to get back to playing video games, and we're doing that a couple times a week too. So come back and hang out. We'll have some fun. I hope to see you then. Until then, don't do anything I wouldn't do.